Most gardeners think July is a quiet month for hostas. I used to believe that too, and that belief cost me 3 seasons of disappointing results. Welcome back to Roots and Garden Secrets. I am glad you are here today, because what I am about to share with you could genuinely change the way your entire hosta bed looks next spring. Here is what nobody talks about. July is not a resting month for your hostas. It is actually the most critical decision point of the entire growing year. Every choice you make right now, and every task you skip, gets recorded underground in the root system and shows up again in March when your garden either looks stunning or just struggles to wake up. I have been growing hostas for over 15 years, and I have made just about every mistake you can make with these plants. But once I understood what hostas actually need in the heat of summer, everything changed. My beds became fuller, the leaves came back larger and more vibrant each spring, and I stopped feeling frustrated after a long season of effort. So today I am giving you 8 specific things to do this month. Not general plant advice, not tips that work any time of year. These are July actions, built specifically for hostas, grounded in both hands-on experience and expert research. If this kind of deep dive garden content is what you are looking for, go ahead and hit like and subscribe to Roots and Garden Secrets so you never miss an update. Now, let's get into it. Let's start with the first thing, and this one surprises a lot of experienced gardeners because it is not about whether you are watering your hostas. It is about how you are doing it, and the difference between the two approaches is bigger than most people realize. Here is what I see in most home gardens. People run a sprinkler over their hosta beds for 15 or 20 minutes every single day. The surface gets wet, it looks fine, and they move on. But here is the problem. When you water shallow and frequent, you are training your hosta roots to stay near the surface of the soil, right where July heat does the most damage. Those shallow roots dry out fast, stress easily, and the plant spends all its energy just trying to survive instead of building strength for next spring. What hostas actually need is deep, infrequent watering. About 1 inch of water, once or twice a week, depending on your local heat and soil drainage. The goal is to push moisture down 6 to 8 inches so the roots follow it downward into cooler, more stable ground. A soaker hose laid right at the base of your plants, running for 45 to 60 minutes, is the most effective way to do this. 2 signs your hostas are running low on water are drooping leaves and brown crispy edges. If you are unsure, stick your finger about 1 inch into the soil. If it feels dry, water now. And always water in the morning, never in the evening, because wet soil overnight creates exactly the conditions slugs love. And that brings me right to the second thing. Slugs are at their absolute peak in July, and your hostas are their favorite target. These pests hide during the day under mulch and fallen leaves, then come out after dark and do serious damage while you are asleep. By the time most gardeners notice, the leaves already look like Swiss cheese, and the part that really stings is that the damage is permanent. A chewed leaf does not heal. The most effective and safest option is iron phosphate bait, sold under names like Sluggo at most garden centers. Scatter it thinly and evenly around your bed, especially in damp, shaded areas. After a slug eats it, feeding stops within hours, and the slug dies within 3 to 6 days. Unused bait breaks down naturally and actually releases small amounts of iron and phosphorus that benefit your soil. For a chemical-free barrier, diatomaceous earth works well. This fine powder made from fossilized algae cuts through the soft bodies of slugs and causes them to dehydrate. Just remember, it loses effectiveness when wet, so reapply after rain. If you prefer traps, bury a shallow container with the rim sitting half an inch above the soil. Fill it with a few inches of cheap beer and empty it every 2 to 3 days. And if you want 0 products at all, go out with a flashlight an hour after dark and hand-pick them off directly. Finally, if you are adding hostas to your collection, varieties with thick textured leaves like Halcyon, Blue Angel, and Sum and Substance are naturally more resistant to slug damage, which is worth keeping in mind. Now that we have covered watering and slug control, let's move into 3 more things that most gardeners either overlook completely or handle the wrong way in July. And I want to start with something that sounds simple, but has a layer of detail that most people miss. By the time July rolls around, you are going to start noticing leaves in your hosta bed that look rough. Some are yellowing at the edges, some have slug damage, some are just torn and ragged from spring storms or early heat stress. The most common response I see is to leave them alone and hope the plant sorts itself out. I understand the instinct, but it is the wrong call. A damaged leaf is not contributing to the plant. It cannot photosynthesize properly. It is not producing energy, and it is quietly pulling resources away from the healthy parts of the plant that actually are working. Beyond that, a handful of beat-up leaves makes the entire bed look neglected, even when the rest of the plant is completely healthy. Removing them takes maybe 10 minutes for an entire bed, and the visual result is immediate. To remove a damaged leaf, grip it firmly at the base where it meets the main stem, and pull downward in one clean motion. Most of the time it comes right off. If it resists, use a clean pair of scissors or pruners and snip it at the base. But here is something I want you to pay close attention to, because this goes beyond basic cleanup. Not all leaf damage looks the same, and knowing the difference matters. Yellowing leaves usually point to inconsistent watering or too much shade. Ragged holes are almost always slug damage. But if you see brown streaks running between the leaf veins, that is a completely different situation. Those marks are called nematode tracks, and they are a sign of foliar nematodes, which are microscopic roundworms feeding inside the leaf tissue. If you spot that pattern, do not divide that plant, and keep your tools away from it until you have addressed the problem separately. And regardless of what kind of damage you are dealing with, always wipe your pruners with 70% rubbing alcohol between plants. This one habit prevents the accidental spread of Hosta virus X, which I will talk more about later in this video. Moving right along to the fourth action for July, and this one is something a surprising number of gardeners skip entirely. If your hostas have finished flowering, cut those flower stalks off now. Once the blooms are done, that stalk, which is called the scape, is doing absolutely nothing useful for the plant. It is just sitting there, drawing energy without giving anything back. And if you leave it long enough to go to seed, the plant pours even more energy into seed production, which is energy that should be going straight into the root system. Strong roots built during summer are what give you that spectacular flush of growth the following spring. So as soon as the flowers fade, cut the scape off cleanly at the base, right where it meets the crown of the plant. It takes a few seconds per plant, and the payoff is real. Some gardeners, myself included on certain varieties, actually cut the scapes before the flowers even open if the goal is purely to maximize foliage. That is entirely your call, but the principle is the same. Every bit of energy that does not go into flowers or seeds goes into the roots, and that is exactly where you want it. The fifth thing to do this July is refresh your mulch, and I cannot overstate how much difference this single step makes for hostas specifically. Remember that hostas are woodland plants by nature. They evolved on cool, moist forest floors, with deep organic matter insulating their roots. When you replicate that environment, they thrive. When you do not, they struggle quietly in ways that do not always show up until it is too late in the season to fix. The mulch you laid down in spring has likely broken down, compacted, or been scattered by rain and foot traffic. That means your hosta roots are more exposed to summer heat than you realize. A proper layer of mulch does 4 things at once. It keeps the soil significantly cooler. It retains moisture so you water less often. It suppresses weeds that compete for nutrients. And as it breaks down, it slowly feeds the soil beneath it. The best mulch options for hostas are shredded hardwood bark, which decomposes slowly over 12 to 18 months and holds its position well in wind and rain, or aged leaf mold, which is exceptionally rich in organic matter and has been shown to help hostas develop thicker, more resilient leaves while delaying midsummer wilt. Research from the University of Illinois found that mulched soil retains 25% more moisture than bare soil, which means less stress on your plants and less work for you. Aim for a layer about 2 to 3 inches thick around your hosta beds. Keep it pulled back about 2 inches from the crown of each plant to prevent rot at the base. And avoid adding heavy layers of fresh mulch during peak heat waves, as trapped humidity can invite fungal problems. Top up what is already there, keep it consistent, and your hostas will respond visibly within a week. Here is something that catches a lot of dedicated gardeners off guard. And honestly, this might be the most counterintuitive tip in this entire video. If you have been feeding your hostas through spring and into early summer, that is great. You have been doing the right thing. But right now, in July, you need to know exactly when to stop. because continuing to fertilize past this point does not help your plants. It actually sets them up for damage. When you apply fertilizer in late July or August, you are sending the plant a signal to keep producing new growth. And the plant listens. It pushes out soft, tender new leaves that look healthy on the surface, but are completely unprepared for what is coming. Fall arrives, temperatures drop, and that new growth gets hit by frost before it ever had a chance to harden off. The damage does not just stay on the surface. Frost damage to tender growth can work its way back down into the crown of the plant, which is the central hub that stores the energy your hosta needs to survive winter and come back strong in spring. Hostas need roughly 2 months of dormancy at temperatures below 40 degrees Fahrenheit to fully recover and reset. The Tennessee Hosta Society is clear on this point. Do not fertilize after August. The University of Minnesota Extension goes a step further and recommends stopping by the end of July entirely. My personal rule, based on years of experience, is to make the final fertilizer application of the year no later than early July. Then step back and let the plant do what it was designed to do, which is wind down naturally, harden off, and push energy deep into the roots for winter storage. Do not interrupt that process. Now, the 7th action for this month is one that requires no tools and no physical effort at all, but it is incredibly valuable for your garden's future. Walk your hosta beds right now and assess which clumps are starting to show signs of overcrowding. July is the single best month for this evaluation, because your plants are at their largest and fullest, which makes problems easy to spot. There are 4 clear signs that a hosta clump needs to be divided. The first is a hollow or dying center surrounded by healthy outer growth, which is the classic sign that the plant is competing with itself for resources. The second is leaves that are noticeably smaller than they were in previous seasons. The third is an overall thinning of the clump despite consistent care. And the fourth is plants that have crept into pathways or begun crowding neighboring plants. One important caution here. Do not divide a hosta that is less than 3 years old, and avoid dividing any clump more frequently than once every 4 to 6 years. Over-dividing disrupts the plant's carbohydrate storage cycle and actually makes it more vulnerable to slugs and nematodes in the following season. The best time to actually do the dividing is early spring, when the new shoots are just emerging from the soil, or early fall around September, when temperatures begin to cool. But the reason you scout in July is so you are not scrambling when that window opens. Take a few photos with your phone. Make a mental note or jot it down. When September arrives, you will know exactly which plants need attention and where you want to replant the divisions, and that preparation makes the whole process smoother and more successful. There is one more thing I want to cover before we wrap up today, and this is something most gardening channels simply do not talk about, but every serious hosta grower in America needs to know about it. It is called Hosta virus X, and it has been quietly spreading through home gardens and nurseries across the country since it was first identified in 1996. Here is what makes this virus so dangerous. An infected plant can look completely normal for up to 3 years before any symptoms appear. When symptoms do show up, you will notice unusual mottled blotching on the leaves, discoloration running along the leaf veins, and puckering or distortion of the leaf tissue. Some gardeners actually mistake early symptoms for an interesting new variety, which is exactly how the virus spreads so easily. It travels from plant to plant through contaminated sap on garden tools. There is no cure. Any plant confirmed to have Hosta virus X must be dug up and thrown away entirely. Do not compost it, because the virus can persist in organic material. For prevention, simply wash your pruners and shovels with hot soapy water between plants, or wipe them down with rubbing alcohol. When buying new hostas, purchase from reputable growers and inspect the leaves carefully before bringing anything home. July, when your plants are in full leaf, is the best time of the entire year to walk your garden and check for any signs of this virus, because everything is visible and easy to evaluate right now. So let's bring it all together. Your July Hosta checklist has 8 items. Water deeply and less often. Get ahead of slugs before the damage gets out of hand. Remove any damaged or yellowing leaves and sanitize your tools as you go. Cut spent flower scapes down to the base. Refresh your mulch to protect those roots from summer heat. Stop fertilizing now so your plant can begin preparing for winter. Walk your beds and identify any clumps that need dividing in fall. and inspect every plant for early signs of Hosta virus X. All 8 of these things together take maybe 20 to 30 minutes in a weekend afternoon, but the results show up for an entire season and carry right into next spring. Hostas are forgiving plants, but they respond beautifully when you give them the right attention at the right moment. July is that moment. Tell me in the comments, which one of these 8 things surprised you the most? I have a feeling the fertilizer timing and the virus section are going to get some reactions. If this video gave you something useful, please hit like and subscribe to Roots and Garden Secrets. There is a lot more coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.